This is the Macro-Micro Narrative Project by ZZ Khan in Block 3. And we're going to start with the micro portion. So this is the narrative of Lorcan Black. He is 28 years old and he currently lives in London. He wrote about how he kept journals since he was very young, and he used to be sad a lot of the time. So that's what a lot of his journal entries would be about, and he used to call himself depressed. At age 17, he overdosed, and these are the words he had to say about it. I asked to admit myself to the hospital the next day. I didn't really want to die, I just didn't know what else I could do. And eventually, he ended up in a psych ward. He was very embarrassed, but not ashamed of what he was going through. Previously, he had self-medicated and also mixed a lot of medications he was not supposed to. Eventually, he was diagnosed with bipolar II disorder. He had periods of hypomania, which are periods of extreme elation and high energy levels that could, unchecked, go on for weeks, and he did have periods of those that went on for a while. But he also had depressive episodes where he was upset and faced the symptoms of depression for really long periods of time. But he also went long times without either eventually, so he wanted to stop taking that medication that he was previously taking. And once he stopped the medication, he knew that he had to go to the doctor if anything else started acting up. And today, he is successful and living every day and aims to show that he's a person just like anyone else and those people around us. And now it's time for the macro portion that will talk about bipolar disorder as a whole. The learning perspective, specifically operant learning and behavior, applies to bipolar disorder in more ways than first come up to thought. Operant learning can be used for individuals with bipolar disorder to help cope with high stages of either manic or depression. Having bipolar disorder is not a learned disorder in any way or sense of the word and should not be classified as such. Some doctors and/or therapists would suggest to use operant learning perspective to develop coping techniques for someone with this disorder. As well as this, operant conditioning can be connected to the depressive parts of bipolar disorder because in this there is no longer positive reinforcement to keep moving forward. Next, we have treatment. The most common treatment for bipolar disorder is not therapy, but rather the medical model. Common medications for bipolar disorder are lithium, SSRIs, or antipsychotics. Usually, treatment is lifelong and often involves a combination of both these medications, as well as the addition of therapy. This non-medical approach can also be taken, but would not be as effective to someone with this disorder. Common therapies for bipolar disorder are group therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, and psychotherapy. In our case study, we see a man who begins his treatment with medication, but ends it with a more cognitive thought process in which he ends up not needing medication, but keeping an eye out for when he may need it again. And now we have the biological perspective. Bipolar disorder is thought by researchers to be mainly a genetic condition that is caused by one's genetic makeup. As well as this, multiple other factors may interact to produce abnormal brain function that will in turn result in bipolar disorder symptoms of major depression and mania. Some environmental factors may also cause bipolar disorder, and those include stress, alcohol, or substance abuse, and a lack of sleep. Other than this, the temperament of a person with bipolar disorder will shift as they move from a manic stage to a depressive stage. All of this has to do with the brain chemistry of the person, not just their quote-unquote personality. And now we have the effect on motivation and experience of emotion in terms of bipolar disorder. Someone with bipolar disorder will experience bouts of emotion that shift from weeks or months of mania to weeks or months of depression. Usually, the depressive states last longer than the manic episodes. During the depressive episodes, the person who is affected will have a lower internal locus of control and a lower need to achieve, being lost in a cycle of depressive thoughts. During the manic stage, one might be extremely high energy, but to a point where it is maladaptive. During the manic stage, the internal locus of control is considered much higher, as the motivation to do things is larger and more things will get done, similar to feeling at the top of the world. And next we have the social cultural perspective. The stigma and stereotypes around bipolar disorder are quite large and very common among society. Because of this, many people who have the disorder push it away or deny the fact that they have it to prevent getting help they think that they don't need. Many will not take medication because of this. In our case study, we saw how the individual felt like he was different from the rest of society but wanted to show he was the same. Society and culture shape the thoughts and behaviors of those with bipolar disorder and how they view themselves because of the stereotypes that surround them. It can cause a lack of treatment and the person's disorder only getting worse. And now we have personality. The Big Five trait theory applies to bipolar disorder in the way that manic episodes and depressive episodes are on very different sides of each trait spectrum. For openness, someone in a manic episode may be more inventive and curious, while someone in a depressive episode may be more consistent and cautious in their actions and ideas. For conscientiousness, someone in a manic episode may be more efficient and organized in all that they do, while someone in a depressive episode may be much more easygoing and careless as to what is happening. For extroversion, someone in a manic episode may be more outgoing and energetic, while someone in a depressive episode may be more solitary and reserved to those around them. For agreeableness, someone in a manic episode may be more friendly and compassionate, while someone in a depressive episode may be more challenging or detached. And finally, for neuroticism, someone in a manic episode may be more secure or confident, while someone in a depressive episode may be more sensitive or nervous. And finally, we have resources. The case study I researched took place in London, so some resources that people in London could reach out to would be support groups. Bipolar UK runs a central London support group that would be helpful for those with bipolar disorder to join with others in similar positions to them. They also have a peer support line where you can talk to people who are going through the same thing as you if they need supports in regards to it. There are also many online communities that one can join to get help both individually and in a group setting. So that's the end of my project. I have my work cited in the Google Doc and all of this written down. Thank you.